Hi, this is Madison, and this is my Chapter 9 video assignment. The first question is, what are your views on the current involvement of the government in education? I found this to be somewhat of a very complex and challenging question. So the federal government has established programs such as No Child Left Behind, Common Core standards, charter schools, and state assessments. And do I agree with all these laws or rules made by the federal government? No, I don't agree with all of them, but what it comes down to is money. The federal government has absolutely no right to come in, they can't come into the schools and tell us how to teach, but they do work their way in by using money as the motivating factor. The state of Nebraska has decided that we need federal funding. In order to get this, we have to follow the laws that are created by the federal government. If we don't, then we don't get the money. So even if I don't agree with all of their laws, I feel like our hands are tied and we have to do what they say because we need the financial support. And without it, I think our education system would decline. I really don't like that people in Washington, D.C. are telling us what to do and how to teach. I think that the government is comparing Nebraska, which mainly consists of smaller schools, to larger school districts in bigger cities, and different schools have different needs. I think Nebraska has done a good job of establishing challenging standards, and I like the standards personally because I teach math and I like to know what to teach. But you could also argue that is one state assessment a good way to evaluate kids? Is it a true reflection on how school is doing overall? I think these are very debatable questions. I would personally say that one test can't completely capture how school is doing. I think it really depends on, what students are in your class. One year you could have a very high achieving class, and the next year you could have a very low achieving. Not that they're not trying hard, but they're just not as academically high as the year before. But the federal government doesn't look at it this way. It's pretty black and white for them, and they want to know where their funding's going, and they want to see positive data and results. And another big issue is what it boils down to is trust. Does the government trust us in educating students? Moving on to the second question that deals with Common Core standards. So far, there are only 5 states that have chosen not to adopt these standards, and that includes Alaska, Minnesota, Nebraska, Texas, and Virginia. And it was said that the impact of the Common Core standards could perhaps be the biggest shift in educational philosophy in the history of the United States. So, I don't know about that, but that's what I read. Some pros on the Common Core standards were that they are internationally benchmarked, so this means that our standards will compare favorably to standards of other countries. It'll allow states to compare standardized test scores accurately, so we can compare one state's results to another state's. It will also decrease the costs states pay for test development, scoring, and reporting, because each state will no longer have to pay their own specific to get their own specific test developed. That each state that has the Common Core standards can share the same standards and develop a like test to meet the needs, and then they can split the cost. It'll increase the rigor in the classroom and thus better prepare students for college, and be prepared for life after high school. The Common Core standards will lead to the development of higher level thinking skills, and which will create better problem solving skills and increased reasoning. The assessments will allow teachers to monitor students' progress throughout the year. We will be able to see what all students have learned through the multi-assessment model. It benefits students who move frequently, So if a student moves from state to state, they're being taught the same material, and a student won't be behind because of moving. It allows students to better understand what is expected of them, so they understand what and why they are learning something, so they get a greater sense of purpose. And it'll enhance teacher collaboration and professional development. Teachers across the nation will be teaching the same curriculum, so they can share ideas and practices. Some cons, it can be very difficult for students and teachers to initially adjust to. It could cause teachers and administrators to pursue other career options. So some might rather quit or retire before they have to adjust their way of teaching. They also could be considered to be vague or broad. It requires younger students to learn at a quicker pace than they ever have before, so early childhood programs will be more rigid. It'll not have equivalency tests for students with special needs, so there will be no modified tests for the Common Core standards. They could be considered to be watered down compared to a few states who have previously adopted difficult standards. They could lead many current textbooks to be outdated, so schools would have to adopt new materials, which that would cost money, and they would also cost money to update their technology that's needed for the Common Core standards assessments. And there's also increased value on standardized test performance. And the last one is that the Common Core standards currently only assess skills in language arts and math. So those are the only two that are assessed. I looked up why Nebraska hadn't, adopted the Common Core standards, because, I just thought it would be interesting to look into our state. And the director of math for the state education department in Nebraska told the Lincoln Journal-Star that there was no proof that Common Core was the best way to teach math, and she quoted that the jury's still out there. And then also that the former vice president of the state school board said states were adopting standards before they had been compiled. So they literally weren't even written yet. And there also appears to be some legal debate, as Nebraska law requires districts to adopt state standards. So I just thought it was kind of interesting to look into our state. Okay, so the last question: what action would you recommend to take our public education back? This is also kind of a difficult question. I don't think there's a clear solution to this. One option could be looking at it from a local level. You could say, okay, we don't want to do your federal programs, and so we're not going to take your federal funding, and so by not getting the federal funding anymore, we'd have to find money somewhere else. And one other way we could do it is by increasing taxes. I don't think this solution would probably go over very well with very many people, because most people don't like to hear that taxes are going to increase. It could be an option, but I don't know how. I don't think it would probably work because of the whole taxes situation. Another option could be, I think it's the best option. I don't know how realistic it is, but it would be to get the federal government to trust us. Give schools the money, and then let us use it how we need to. Trust, the state of Nebraska that we're going to use the money in the best way to educate students. I don't think this will probably happen either, because, like I said, the government wants to know where the money is going, and they really want to see the data. So I don't know if that option would happen either, but out of the two, I would rather see the one that the government trusts us, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, well, thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you guys'